people, generally speaking, who are nowhere near as attentive, that means your copy has to be very simplistically written, fourth, fifth, sixth grade level. Not saying that's where they are intellectually, but that's where we write copy. And incredibly persuasive, it has to grab attention. So how do you do that? That is what we teach. And that's what you can actually teach chat to do yourself with some clever cut and paste.
Hey everyone, this is Mark de Grasse, the president of digital marketer, and this is the podcast that keeps you up to date on everything you need to know when it comes to digital marketing, from the platforms you need to be focused on to the cutting edge tactics and tools that are working today. Today, our guest is Jon Benson, the CEO of CopyPro and Benson. He's been using AI for 6 years before anybody thought it was going to be a thing, and he's also the new creator of Chat VSL, which we're going to talk about in terms of incorporating copywriting and the concept of copywriting into your video production, which we should all be doing. So welcome, Jon.
Hey, thanks a lot, Mark. Good to see you, man.
All right. So 6 years, that's a long time. I've heard 1 year, 2 years, and that's always impressive, but 6. Tell us just about how you got into AI in the first place.
Yeah, so we were doing AI before AI was a thing. And the whole thing behind CopyPro was getting AI ready language. So how would AI in the future dissect copy? And so we started 6.5 years ago with dissecting emails, and that was Email Copy Pro. That became sales letters and ads and everything else, even a webinar, and that's Copy Pro. And people for about 4 of those 6 years didn't get it. They were like, because there was a lot of manual labor involved. We had to have people fill out their what we call blueprints manually, and they still do that because it isn't copy isn't AI. It's just ready for AI. And this is what we're telling people is like, well, look, when AI gets caught up with what we're doing, this is going to be turned into cut and paste simplicity for these templates, and that's what has happened. So that's really cool. So just kind of digging into how AI would think through the structure of language, which is very difficult. It took us years to figure out because it didn't work with like simple little, like if you see templates online, right, and fill in the blank, it needed specific phrases and terms and things like that. And now it's become kind of ubiquitous, which is kind of cool. It's like it just, people are using our templates all the time. But so that's cool. And then I got into actual AI when it started becoming more of a plausible thing. I mean, it was always theoretical, but when it became more plausible, which is right about the time Jasper came around, and they reached out to me and said, hey, could we put your VSL formula into Jasper? And this is before chat. And I was like, yeah, sure, you can do that. It'll never work. I mean, there's no way, right? And so I knew that there was no way. But I sent it to them, and they were like, yeah, this will never work. It's like, because AI at the time was extremely limited. It was like, a 4-character readback. And I'm like, well, dude, it's like 6,000. So they were thinking, well, it would work if we took a year to break all this into these pieces and stuff like that. But so they put a 60-second VSL of mine in Jasper last year, and so it's cool. It was doing okay. It's pretty good, It's not like the exact close. And then when GPT-4 came out, that really changed everything, and Chat GPT in general changed everything. But 4 was the big flip of the switch for us. That was the time where we're going, okay, now it can actually write copy if you feed it the right formulas and pre-prompts and all this stuff called in-context learning and all this stuff. So if you feed it the right stuff, it can do it. If on its own, it still sucks.
Yeah.
I mean, people are so impressed by They're so impressed by chat because it writes magical things, and it's really good at things like if you ask it a question like, "Hey, who should I hire for my business?" or what qualifications should I ask for, or can you write me a poem about whatever? That's very impressive. I mean, it's very impressive. But if you say write me a promotional email for X, good luck getting that to convert because it just doesn't understand that yet. But it's getting there. And so our training now helps people optimize chat because you can totally optimize it. You can make it do what you want. You just have to give it a little bit more stuff than what the prompts aren't going to get it. And then, of course, our own AI, which is called Benson, BNSN, my last name without the vowels. Basically, we wanted to sound kind of like a robot. So that's actually geared toward full-fledged direct response copywriting, and that's where it's really interesting because Benson's entirely promptless. So that'll be one of the very first promptless AIs out there for mass consumption that will hit the market here in a couple months.
Wow. Yeah, no, that sounds like a game changer.
So that's
And I love your points about, AI, the kind of process that AI went through to become practical and become useful for people. Because I was in the exact same boat. Last year when I tried AI, I was like, this is sort of okay. And then I think I started using it in December, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is actually super helpful and just super valuable.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the copywriting side, just for the average person or even the average marketer, a lot of people think like, oh, copywriting, that's like what Mad Men did, and that's the extent of its usefulness. And they don't really understand the kind of complexity that goes into copywriting. So before we kind of get off on our AI tangent, have you found a way to explain copywriting to people to show just how valuable and important it is in a short summary?
Yeah, I mean, I think I can give you a really short summary. Copywriting is words that sell, and if you don't have it, you have nothing that sells.
Ooh,
you can take a look at any offer in the world. I don't care what it is. There are words associated with that offer. If the words are bad, it's not going to sell as well. It's just really that simple. So copywriting is the art and science of words that sell. That's basically how I define it. And it is an art and a science at the same time. So it is mostly science mixed with a little bit of art. People try to be Hemingway and Dostoevsky when they write copy. It's a big mistake. But on the other hand, and that's what chat likes to do. It likes to wax philosophic while it's writing copy. This is not a good idea. But the art of persuasion is, there's numerous books written. There's the book Persuasion, of course, out there that's very, very famous. There's thousands of books on persuasion, because persuasion is an art. So how do you do it with words? Because it's one thing to do it in person. It's another thing to do it even on a video. Even on videos, you're speaking words, right? So Mad Men is a great show. It's one of my favorite shows. I always make jokes about being the twin brother of John Hamm. So, but the people get us confused all the time. I mean, seriously, it's like I'm the better looking twin brother. But yeah, so yeah, great show. But John Hamm had such an easy job. If copywriting, Ryan would echo this for sure. Dice, in case anyone couldn't complete that sentence.
There's only one Ryan.
So yeah, the Ryan. So Ryan, I've been friends for a long time, and and he has been on copywriting since day one, and obviously he can do it. Perry was brilliant copywriter, and I really enjoyed Perry's stuff and still do. But to be able to put an offer together and make it compelling and make it interesting and still make it persuasive is the most important skill anyone can have in marketing. It's the skill that will never go away. It doesn't matter what AI is doing. You have to know, and what we teach people all day long is, if you go to chat and you type something in, you can use the prompts the size of War and Peace, and it's still going to have a really hard time with persuasion, because persuasion is not entirely logical. And Chat GPT and other AI are all narrow AI, so there's not general intelligence yet. So it's inherently logical. That's what it does. It's a predictive engine. It predicts the next few letters. What it's doing at warp speed. It's predicting the next few letters just at warp speed. And it's doing it based on reading a lot of the internet. So if you think like it's thinking, which is like, okay, based on everything I've read, that this is the logical thing to come next, it's not going to understand a curveball, right? But we know from writing offers, you throw curveballs in offers all the time. Like you'll say something like, look, I've got a way that can do blah, blah, blah. I'll tell you about it in just a moment. First, well, what did I do there? A very simple NLP technique called opening a loop. That's it. I'll tell you about it in a minute. First, I just engage somebody to hang on a little bit longer. And that little trick right there is what AI has a hard time with in context, really hard, unless you know how to get it to do that.
Oh, that's a genius explanation, because it's it takes a really complex topic, like you were talking about, the science of copywriting, and it really just condenses it into a single phrase, which is really difficult. And I think it's paralleled with people's understanding of marketing too, because if you say like, hey, how do you market something? It's like, well, you put a billboard up and you talk about how awesome your product is, and then people buy the product. It's like, no, you don't sell features, you sell solutions. And so I think copywriting is, it's the basis of all marketing, whether people want to write or not. Any conveying of information, whether it's writing, graphics, video, VR, who knows what the heck's going to come next. It's still going to be based on that persuasive technique that's established through copywriting. So genius example, probably going to steal it.
You're welcome to. An interesting little side note, if I can, in Mad Men, because I was seen it multiple times. There's a lot of references to Eugene Schwartz because he was very prominent in that day, and the writers of the show knew that, and they were mostly like, did you see Schwartz's ad? It's like his ad's like a freaking article. They're like making fun of direct response copyright as a little wink and a nod, because all Don Draper was doing was like coming up with headlines and basically taglines, concepts, big ideas, as we would call them. I mean, don't get me wrong, big ideas, there's a huge talent to that, but I would love to sit around in an office, drink all day long, smoke all day long, assuming that wouldn't kill me, which it would, and sit around and go, okay, well, big idea for so-and-so, boom. Okay, I'm going home. I mean, that's easy compared to what we do. We have to write 6,000 words underneath that to continue that big idea, keep that theme alive and keep an interest alive. And yeah, if you're a copywriter and you're writing emails, for example, you're writing 12,000 words a month and you don't even know it. So it's a much bigger task than most people realize. And unless you do it right, your sales just go down. It's that simple. It's really one of the few metrics that people can look at and say, without one exception, if you improve your copy, your sales go up. I mean, it's like such the obvious thing to say, right? But people don't understand that, and they're trying to do everything, improve the quality of their video. They're trying to get on different social media channels. They're trying to get maybe a billboard. Dude, just improve your copy. I mean, that's the best investment you can make.
Hey everyone, I wanted to quickly interrupt the podcast for a special announcement. If you're listening to this podcast because you want to become a better marketer, then I want to share with you what I believe to be the most comprehensive digital marketing program on the market today. It's called the Digital Marketing Mastery Certification. You'll learn to leverage the tools and channels to predictably and profitably drive awareness, leads, sales, and referrals. Everything you need to know to become a true master of digital marketing. We'll take an in-depth look at the core digital marketing competencies, including content, email, social media, community, digital advertising, data and optimization, and more. After earning your digital marketing strategy certificate, you'll have the tools to effectively reach your target audience through a full scope marketing strategy. Get started today at digitalmarketer.com/strategy-cert. Oh, yeah, well, it's so funny because just one word difference sometimes is enough to change an entire ad, and you're like, oh, that's so obvious, but it's not easy, And I think
I've double conversions on an ad with one word. So
with one word,
with one word, one word change, and so I mean, not to interrupt you, Mark, but a lot of copywriters have stories like that, and there's famous negative uses of this that I talk about in my training courses, like. There was a certain Austrian painter in the 1930s and 40s whose name I shall not mention because he doesn't deserve to be mentioned, but who led a world war. And he changed the tenor of the entire nation state of Germany by talking, instead of about a war, he added one word, holy. And when he started talking holy war, next thing you know, you can not entire population, but 10% of the population completely losing their collective minds and going into World War II. So and I'm not saying that's the only reason that that led to World War II, but this is the people that know how to influence and persuade. They can use it for great things, like to help people out and get people to take action, or horrible things like that, right? So, but that's a one word alteration you can note in history's timeline, and there's quite a few other examples of that.
No, I love that. Well, I love minimalism too. So the more you could break down a concept into less words, the better. And I think, the argument against that probably in the last 20 years has been, it's not Mad Men days. People don't get the majority of their information from a single batch of tissue paper that everybody's walking around with. No, we have 10,000 different sources of information and different ways to consume that information. And now it's targeting specific aspects of how I behave, which, in the history of humanity, I don't think there's ever been a situation like this. But it's even more important that the copy comes down and that you're able to distill all of your concepts into the narrowest of words, because you don't have very much time to convey them. But it's also based on copywriting.
You want to hear an amazing statistic is that our attention spans over the last decade have decreased by 2 seconds. Now you think, oh gosh, big deal, 2 seconds. No, it used to be 12 seconds and now it's 10 or 9 rather. So it's decreased by 3 seconds. So it went from 12 to 9. Like, so in other words, you have the attention span of a gnat. Okay. And so just bear that in mind, that is a massive decrease from what it was 100 years ago. So the attention spans are just going to drop off a cliff, especially in the TikTok generation. So,
oh, well, it's funny. I was watching the finale to The Queen's Gambit last night, and it was, she's in the big thing in Russia. She's in the big competition, and there's just rows of people that are sitting there completely silent, staring at a chess game. I was like, oh, you couldn't do that today. Well, I'm sure they do it still, but just the concept of it being popular and people just staring and focusing so hard on, a game from two people just talking, or not even talking, two people just making an adjustment.
Sitting there looking at a chessboard. It's my wife and I were listening to Bill Evans, a jazz musician. So I'm a musician, grew up playing. And so I was exposing her to actual real jazz. And so I listened to Bill Evans Trio. And I found this video from I want to say late 50s, where it might have been early 60s, but it was quite some time ago. And there was a whole video of the Bill Evans Trio playing live in a British audience. And it was almost 2 hours long. And everyone's just listening with rapt report, listening to this like they're all engaged. And this is on BBC. So this is being televised for 2 hours. And the announcer's breaking down like, on bass is this guy and his story is this. And they're going to talk about the melody of this song and all this. And I'm like, who would listen to this today? Except a jazz freak, right? No one would watch this can you imagine this on television? Instead, you do a flip to the channel of what we have today, and it's just ridiculous. I mean, so that's how much I would say we've seen collective IQs drop off the planet because people are getting intellectually lazy because of things, the way technology is. But it's one thing to have that happen. It's another thing to have our attention spans drop off. So if you're dealing with people who are not going to be as savvy, generally speaking, of course, there's also way above board brilliance in the world today, but people generally speaking who are nowhere near as attentive, that means your copy has to be very simplistically written, 4th, 5th, 6th grade level. Not saying that's where they are intellectually, but that's where we write copy, and incredibly persuasive, it has to grab attention. So how do you do that? That is what we teach. And that's what you can actually teach chat to do yourself with some clever cut and paste. So it's kind of cool.
No, it's fantastic. Well, and I think it also shows just the importance of the process for AI as well. Because I think before, well, I always laugh because if somebody uses AI and they're like, yeah, it's stupid and it doesn't do anything, I'm like, you don't get it. But that's okay. We don't want everybody to get it. But just saying that.
For right now, for right now, it's good that not everyone gets it, because it would just be even bigger and more of an onslaught than it is. But the marketers that do get it, oh my gosh, I'm consulting with a guy who's a killer copywriter. And I was reading his letter. I go, man, your letter's awesome. It's like, there's not much to say in critique of this. Because chat wrote 30% of it using your stuff. It's geez, wow.
Like,
I mean, it's like, so we're talking like high level, $1 million a month offers kind of stuff. So it is being used like this out there, not in very many places. And that's where that's going to change over the next 2 years. But if you wait 2 years, you're going to be swallowed by a tidal wave. You got to get ahead of it.
Well, the thing is, I think people just adapt to AI, and then everybody will be using it a year or two, and they'll be fine, but they won't be able to even understand what's happening. So I always tell people, like, if you're learning AI right now, you are very unique and you're ahead of the curve, and this understanding that you're going to get before these, AI agents and all these new auto GPT functions are widespread, you'll understand the basis, and the basis will give you a huge advantage over what you could do next. So I think it's all huge. Everybody learning right now is huge. Now let's talk about your AI. So Benson's coming out very soon. It's not going to be prompt based. So what does that mean?
No. So we are trademarking the term promptless AI. It's a great unique mechanism, isn't it? And it's like I said it out one day. I was like just talking to my guru. I was like, we're actually kind of promptless. I'll write that down. So it is promptless AI. So it's basically taking, this is before plugins came out for chat, by the way. So chat plugins kind of take the general idea of being promptless. In other words, you just tell it kind of what you want. This is like promptless on steroids. So we can tell somebody to look, go out and cut and paste something that you like, and we'll create an entire business around it for you. And then you can cut and paste anything else you like, and we'll create emails and sales letters and all sorts of things just based on what your preferences are. And then we'll find all the important variables in there and pull them out for you, so you don't have to worry about it. So it's literally cut, paste, click, and it's producing A-level copy. So if I've read people like a nightmare story from a VSL that sounds like I wrote it. So it's just and how we've trained it. It's just a different training process. It's a different process entirely than what most people are thinking of when they think of chat.
Oh yeah. Well, chat, most people think, they just think of a list of prompts, and I'm going to, train the AI a certain amount and hope that it remembers, because everybody knows that it forgets sometimes. And just like, you didn't do this
all the time.
Oh man, it's actually been more often now where I'm kind of like, give me a list of 10 items, and then it gives you 5, and you're like, I said 10. And then it didn't get it. This is one string. It did it 3 times in a row where it just gave me 5. I'm like, I don't know how to say 10 differently, like 5 plus 5. Like maybe I'll get mad instead of
but it's a petulant teenager. You have to trick it. It's not even it's a tween. It's not even a teenager. It's a tween, and it's very petulant, and it's going through its phase of I don't wanna, so
attitude.
Yeah.
So with yours, I mean, that sounds almost too simple. So is it something that people are going to be able to do once, and then, hey, I need email, and then it generates the email, and then I need post copy. Post copy.
Oh yeah. So we're starting with email because it's the hardest thing to do. When we originally did the basic coding of it and programming, and all the stuff that we were doing in the background, it's called, we're doing a lot of few shot training. It's a way that it's a method of training AI to where it can start learning patterns. But we're also doing some other stuff that calls for like hundreds of things, and it's kind of complicated and weird. But when we started doing it, we started using VSLs because it was originally going to be called VSL Pro and a replacement for all my VSL software. And then everyone said, "Man, this is awesome," but because I mean, imagine, okay, this was the promise. This is not BS, man. I said, I'm gonna show you how you can write a VSL for your particular niche, whatever it may be, by a Google search. And I'm not talking about a VSL like chat would spit out, or like, well, it can't, but I'm talking about a 6,000 word VSL that sounds like I wrote it, or it sounds like, came out of a very persuasive VSL structure down to the NLP and everything. And that was the promise. And people were like, wow, that's great. But the VSL market is like this compared to the email market, which is huge, right? And email's harder. So we made the decision internally to go email first and then VSL second. But so emails, we're starting with that, but it's still prompts. It's like you can you can write an email with cut and paste, and we're removing the prompt stuff because I don't think people want to be prompt engineers. They don't want to learn prompt. So we're going after that market. It's a much bigger market, but it's kind of funny that our alpha testers right now are all direct response copywriters or marketers. So because I am one, I have to build it enough to please those guys. So that's where we're going with this. And there's examples like, man, look what this thing wrote. It's kind of cool. So, but we're getting there. That's a labor of love.
Well, I think if you can't develop an application that impresses yourself, then it's going to be tough to sell, because you're not going to be, you're not going to believe it. And so I think your process of going with the harder copy first is genius. And then really everything's derived from that, because I've talked to companies and they're like, well, we don't have any content. And I'm like, okay, well, show me your landing page for whatever your top selling product is, and we'll see what we can build off of that. And typically they've done all the work already, because really a good landing page with good copy could be the entire basis of all of your content moving forward. If you want it to be, you're just expanding on concepts sell. And so I think if you could sell people on email and then you generate everything else from those basic concepts and it's all done for you, I think that's huge. And honestly, I think in terms of prompting, because everybody's into prompting, I'm like, hey, unless you're a good writer and you have the type of mind that could conceptualize not just what you want, but the entire process of generating what you want, which is a specific skill set. You're not going to be good at prompting. You'll be able to copy and paste prompts that other people give you, but creation of prompts is not something your average person could do. So I think your AI sounds like something that's going to be next level, because there's tons of industries where nobody's doing any AI right now, and they don't even understand what's happening. I'm like, well, you're in finance. I don't know how that's going to go. No. Well, that's genius. So when is that going to come out? Is it Q2, Q3?
No, we're looking at a possible small release as early as May 15. So it's right around the corner. And some of that is dependent upon, not to bore technical details, but we're using OpenAI, and we kind of want to make sure that we have more than one. Anthropic is another source of AI, and so we're going to be looking at using multiple APIs and stuff. So in other words, make it go faster, make sure it doesn't go down. OpenAI is very crowded, and there's some technical issues to mess around with. But assuming that all that goes as planned, May is what we're targeting. So middle to the end of May.
Well, that sounds fantastic. And like I said, I think it's next level. Actually, I did a speech a couple of weeks ago, and it was people from probably 10 different industries. Nobody had ever touched AI. Nobody was from marketing, but most industries are not seeing what's going to happen. And I'm kind of like, well, your tool is going to be useful, because they're going to have no idea what the heck anybody's talking about in terms of prompting,
Yeah. And the people that do, I mean, like Sam Woods talks a lot about prompting, and he's really good at it, for example. But he admits that, and I really appreciate this about Sam. I've never met him, but just know his work. That he says, I'm not a copywriter, so I can just tell you how I'm getting some really great information out of chat and organizing it well. But again, when it's coming to copy, it kind of lays flat. It feels a little soulless. And so what we're doing is we're letting some of the best copywriters in the world train it on specific things to do. So we're saying, stay in this lane, follow this patterns. So where chat openly can't do that. It's drawing on billions of patterns. And so it's doing its best to understand it, but direct response and really persuasive copy is such a minuscule part of it. So if you train the AI specifically for that, which is what we're doing, you're going to get much better results. So.
Well, that's fantastic. Well, I think we've covered it. The importance of copywriting, kind of the evolution of copywriting since Mad Men days, and Eugene Schwartz, and kind of the development of an application that sounds fantastic and something that a lot more people are going to jump onto versus work in the mines, which is essentially what ChatGPT and all the prompt engines are. Going to be seen in the very near future. So I think you're ahead of the curve, and I'm super excited about seeing your app, because I haven't, well, I've seen other copywriting apps, but I haven't been impressed by anything yet. So so that we're
equally frustrated.
That sounds incredible.
Basically they're sending prompts to OpenAI. That's not going to get it done. But so in a Chat VSL, wanted to just briefly mention that if I can, is the idea of getting a VSL out of chat. So because that part in Benson is going to be 6 months away. If people are wanting to see how to do this in chat, by the way, when Benson comes out, I suggest everyone still use chat. It's not like it's going to be a replacement for that, but yeah, so that's been interesting, because we've been getting full length direct response VSLs out of Chat VSL. So it's kind of cool.
That's fantastic. Do you have a place where people could learn more about that process, or is it a course?
Chatvsl.com will take you to the right place.
Oh, fantastic. Well, thank you so much, Jon. I think this has been super informative. Definitely have to have you back on in a month or two after you get that launched. I want to see what people are doing, and I'll be like, I've been targeted by that copy. Marketing it. I get all the ads. But this has been great, super informative, and really love what you're doing. I think it's going to be huge, and I'm excited. If you ever want to give us a discount code or something, then we'd be happy to share it.
You bet, Mark. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you, Jon.
All right.
All right. And thank you so much for listening. Be sure to hit that follow button so you get notified when all of our new episodes release. And please share that with a friend who is clueless about digital marketing. And don't forget to visit digitalmarketer.com, where you can access all of our courses, certifications, and training programs. Thanks again, everyone, and we'll see you next time.